What is the meaning of refugee to you?
It is an individual that comes to a country asking for help because he has to leave his own country, either for political or safety reasons.
I suppose somebody that's trying to find help, coming from a place where there's war or like some sort of poverty or something like that. They're coming to try and find a better life.
A refugee is a person in need, maybe a person that doesn't have a home or shelter at the moment, and it's another human being that's like need help.
The legal definition of refugee, as defined by the UN, is persons who are outside their country of origin for reasons of feared persecution, conflict, generalized violence, or other circumstances that have seriously disturbed public order and, as a result, require international protection.
Why do you think people decided to come to Greece?
Probably because it was a better opportunity than what they were presented at home. So coming here would be that better opportunity, so then they might have come also for easy access.
Probably because it's a free country, first of all, and our system is generally very lenient with a lot of things, and we also like to help others. I think that's the reason why.
Because they don't have other choices. Like many refugees in Greece are from the Middle East. It's the closest, safer space, I guess.
Because it is one of the few countries in Europe that has open borders. Therefore, we do not even ask for a passport when you enter Greek waters.
It is untrue that Greece does not require passports to enter. In 2015, Europe closed its internal border. The lack of safe legal routes into Europe has resulted in people seeking safety having to take dangerous journeys to reach Europe and apply for asylum.
And there is also a great support system set up from the Greek government for the people in need that come to Greece.
It is also wrong to assume that Greece has an established and good support system in place for people arriving to seek asylum. The reality of support provided to asylum seekers is very low cash assistance amounts, accommodation in camps in poor and insecure conditions, some which monitor movement and are closed, and some are very overcrowded. Many of the camps in Greece were originally set up as temporary accommodation. However, many camps that are still used today have existed since 2016. Additionally, the Greek government closed down the Estia housing project in 2022, which was an accommodation program for applicants of asylum and their families, funded by the European Commission.
What kind of benefits do you think asylum seekers receive while they are going through the asylum process?
I had a friend that was searching for a refuge in Greece, and I know it's very hard to get help. And I know there's a lot of bureaucracy. I know that like the conditions in Yavata are not the best. I think they get basic shelter and food and maybe some clothes.
The reality of the benefits that asylum seekers receive while going through the asylum process is small. At present, in February 2024, individuals get €75 and families of 4 or more get €210 in catered camps.
How can we make the lives of refugees better?
Probably a safe space for them to go to, / like the necessities, so providing food, water, shelter, clothes.
I guess to make the process easier to ask for to become an asylum seeker, I think if we kind of incorporate them more in everyday life, they won't be so isolated.
I believe that helping their country of origin will make their lives better because I do not believe it was their first choice to come here. I believe that no one wants to lose their own country and move out of there. I believe that helping the country that the refugees come from will maybe make the ground more fertile for them to come back.
While it may be true that there is a need to support countries of origin to be safe and hospitable places so that communities do not have to leave, it is impossible for members of the public to stop wars or political persecution, to name just a few examples. Improving the conditions of home countries does not negate the responsibility to uphold human rights and legal obligations. Host countries must uphold international law, provide a safe space, and respect the human rights and dignity of those who seek asylum within their borders.
What do you think are the challenges for people arriving in Greece?
Losing your home means you have nothing. You're like exposed to hunger and the elements, etc. There is a language barrier here, and even more there is a culture barrier. Therefore, you are not even accommodated after months of staying here. I believe that's the biggest problem, the cultural gap between the people that come here and the natives.
Definitely language would also probably be some sort of like identity number. Having a way to even say like, hey, I am from this country. They might not have identification of where they're from, culture.
Identifying that there are language barriers is correct. At present, there are no official actors providing language education for asylum seekers to improve their integration into Greek society. In order to improve acceptance by the Greek community and facilitate economic and social inclusion, easily accessible language lessons are essential.
Yeah, getting in the system, like that's where we come from. That's the hardest thing. Just getting the necessary documents is always difficult. Yeah.
Understanding the legal procedures in host countries and obtaining the necessary documents is a difficult process. In Greece, lengthy and confusing bureaucracy, coupled with short staffing problems, make it more difficult to access essential information on the asylum procedure. It is also commonly assumed that the process for claiming asylum is easy. This is not the case for many people who, in some cases, have to wait months or years to receive decisions.
I'm not sure about that. I don't know too much about like the system to really say like what they go through and what's more difficult and whatnot.
To expand on this answer, people are often taken advantage of. The risk of exploitation in the job market is high in Greece, especially for refugees. To start, Greece has a very high unemployment rate, the second highest in the EU. However, refugees and asylum seekers are especially at risk of exploitation. There are multiple reports of individuals being underpaid and employers not respecting workers' rights or providing adequate working conditions.
What do you think refugees bring to Greek society?
I also think they bring this sense of thankfulness and gratitude of like, I am so thankful to be in a country where I do feel safe, where I do have access to these things, which then helps the people from Greece be like, oh, okay, I actually have it really good. Like, I am well off.
It is wrong to assume that asylum seekers and refugees should feel gratitude and thankful for being granted asylum. The dangerous, let alone life-threatening journey to reach said host country, along with the lengthy, painful and uncertain legal asylum process, make it clear that many host countries are unwelcoming to communities in need. Fundamentally, applying for asylum is a universal human right. Therefore, setting expectations to measure whether people are deserving enough to be accepted by the host country based on their level of gratitude should not come into play.
I'm not sure. I have not even thought a lot about it, but I'd have to say diversity.
I think they bring a new culture to society. Like they bring their own background to help. New food, new music, new clothes, new culture in general.
Well, definitely, hands for like workspaces, so on and so forth. And definitely the differentiation, different cultures, different races.
What can the government do to make refugees' lives better?
Probably a clear system. Clear expectations of like, hey, this is the reality of you entering this country without previous permission, but then also hopefully but to help you, these are the steps that you could go through to become part of the system.
Integration programs, get to know people from the place and just people that help you integrate easier. That'll make it easier if you know someone.
probably fund like the places where they stay, for their food, for their clothes. Definitely do campaigns where they show like even the rest of the people that we shouldn't be against those that actually need help, because back in their hometown like there's wars, so on and so forth. So we should all make them a safe environment so they, they don't feel in danger.
Even the laws to be recognized as refugee are so complicated. Like, you have to come here and ask for asylum, but you cannot take a plane and come because you have to prove that you're in need, but you have to put yourself into danger to illegally in quotation marks, to cross the border, and you're forced to live in Viavataf until you get your papers. And then every year you have to prove. Like, the bureaucracy is too much to create support system and communities inside the cities. Like, refugees children were forced to have to be in the classroom with other 15-year-old Greek children and didn't understand shit, being taught ancient Greek while you don't speak, you don't know, and they were isolated. So maybe more educational programs, or a lot of people have already education, but their education need to be recognized, their degrees, and try to incorporate into our society and not just hold them all together somewhere where we don't see them.
Adequate services including legal and medical aid, educational and psychosocial activities, and meeting basic material needs, just to name a few, should be provided without question to improve the lives of refugees.